All right. Let me see here. Tickets out. Ticket. That's right. Yep. Good. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate that. Uh, guys. Oh, man, I'm telling you, you take over some like little bit of responsibility for lacrosse stuff, and then you just it's like nonstop. Hold on. Totally fine. Okay. Send a message, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, chart's going to get 12 messages all at one time. Are we practicing tomorrow? It's like, I guess the kids went to bed, and the parents are like, hey, it's Tuesday tomorrow. We got practice. I'm like, no, the county does not let us practice till March. So next week, even though it's like 60 degrees out today, it was gorgeous. But yeah, audio is good. Just lessons. There's no crying and trading. Not Jay Tegrenus is going to pull all his hair out because he's in like, it's either a home run trade or it's like he's getting slaughtered. So he's got to, we got to work on his emotions a little bit. He's taking these trades with like crazy risk. He's like, yeah, I'm doing awesome. And then you're like, oh God, no, I'm losing. Too much stuff. um, all right. So obviously there was a lot going on today. If you look over on the markets, there was some movement back and forth as far as currencies goes. Again, we had German business info this morning that I mentioned on the weekly report. I did update last night, guys, when I got back from the weekend of computer game matches. You'll see actually the gaps did quite well this last night. There's actually another one, the Euros, I did not add onto that sheet as well, but that was just another one of the ones that actually it hit the cap and ended up going, I think, at like 40 pips. It hit its 3-1, and actually I think it's 5-1 as well. So it was actually a great week for gaps, not just in currencies, but pretty much across the board. Many of you guys caught those things, so it's awesome that you guys have the strategy as well that you're learning. But German info business climate was one of those things that I had marked off earlier today, and you can see the euro dollar did well as the euro pound did well. Both of them up about 30, and again, that definitely helped having that information, getting some good German business coming out of there. So again, we beat forecasts to the top side. Besides that, again, obviously dollar yen. I'm pretty sure you guys know what's going on with the dollar yen and the pound yen. Coronavirus spreading in multiple places. Interesting enough, though, I guess there was the case in Italy. My wife is actually telling me about this. Let me see if they have it down here. I didn't see anything on it earlier. Is it, maybe it's in this one? No. To see it. No. Just talks about Italy is now the biggest coronavirus outbreak since this, with 200 cases reported and 5 dead. Yeah. So I guess actually, I think she was saying that. Maybe she quoted it wrong, but what she found, and maybe you guys can tell me, is that I guess the case in Italy, they can't track back anywhere. They can't figure out how it got to Italy. Obviously, somewhere on a plane or something, but they couldn't figure out how it tracked back. So that was interesting. And like I said, it's it's going to be around. I don't know. It's still one of those things that I still think people are making it worse than it actually seems right now. I mean, nobody's turned into a zombie, and it's very few deaths. And yes, it's spread, which we knew it was going to spread. I mean, it's just like anything else. I mean, you know, at this point, it's gonna get around, guys. Hate to tell you, it's gonna get around. Interesting, and also I saw that they, I guess Jack posted it, that they have halted the shipment of face masks or whatever. I don't know if that's because China wants more face masks and they don't want to send them elsewhere, or they think that maybe they could potentially be infected, which that would be really interesting if you had to like start destroying Chinese goods, right? It's like, oh my God, talk about destroying the Chinese economy and all the growth that they've formed. If you had to actually destroy goods because they could potentially hold a virus, wow, that would be pretty interesting. And I'm still calling for it. I haven't heard it, but where are the trade sanctions? They created this virus. Now it's spreading around the world. When are people going to point fingers and not be scared of China and be like, oh, this is a global thing. We should come together. It's like, no, they created it, guys. It's no different than Iran making, a faulty missile and then you putting sanctions on them. Don't be scared of China. Put some sanctions. Let's go. They obviously have enough for a bioweapons program. We should go after them for it. That's my take on it. Because it only takes one guy to drop that vial, and next thing you know, the whole world's got it. So, yeah, that's my thing. It's like the swine flu and bird flu of previous years. Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit different. But yeah, it's again, it's another, another basically not bioweapon, but it's a biohazard coming out of the same region. It's like, when are you going to learn? How many things you need to know, So, yeah. But yeah, so it's spread to other countries, and again, not necessarily surprised by any of the yen pairs or anything in there. Um, CAD was up a little bit. The dollar CAD was up a bit too. Aussie dollar, nothing. I'm actually surprised. Ooh, excuse me. I'm actually, and yes, guys, I will probably yawn tonight. I'm gonna apologize right now. It was one of those days. It was long. I didn't realize how much this weekend took out of me. I mean, it was literally the first day we were there from. God, we got inside the doors at like 1:30 maybe, because they had like a gaming area set up to where both my kids were like, "Oh, I want to go over there." So yeah, so I from like one till like, I don't know, one of the rounds normally it takes 4 maps, and this one took 7. Um, I guess we got out of there at like 9. So we were there for like 8 hours of like, music so loud and lights that you like just couldn't hear anything. So 2 days in a row of that, I was like, oh God. So yeah, my ears are still kind of readjusting. Very cool venue, great experience though. My boys had a great time, and thank you Santa Claus. It was a good one. But so yeah, if I yawn tonight, I do apologize. And it didn't help that I was like up at 4:30 this morning. I was like, oh God, why am I awake? So again, a little bit of movement, a little bit of German data. That's it. So tomorrow we have CB consumer confidence for the U.S. So I think that will actually help dictate where the day is going to go tomorrow. Huge sell-off obviously today, and we had some rebounding back and forth. But again, I don't know. I mean, a lot of this was reacting to news from over the weekend. I don't know that we'll get 2 days of this in a row. So, if we have some good consumer confidence numbers, again, that will help things. The Richmond Manufacturing Index will be interesting as well. Really, any of the manufacturing indexes, I'm very, very curious about right now, because obviously, if manufacturing is down in China, um, is there going to be an increase in manufacturing in other places? Because we were seeing a slowdown, and obviously, manufacturing here is not affected by manufacturing over there. So it'll be interesting to see if that whole supply and demand aspect comes into this, because again, that could actually help propel our market back up to where it was. But interesting enough, we were actually calling tops in the market on Thursday, talking about things they were rolling over. We're getting some tops, getting some supply in. And then obviously, we couldn't predict that there was going to be cases. I mean, there's no way to predict those kinds of things, but it just, obviously the floor fell out. So again, tomorrow consumer confidence, we have Richmond manufacturing, and then tomorrow we have construction work done, quarter over quarter. Um, eh, I don't know. The Aussie number is not necessarily going to be a big one. Now I do have another question too, because you don't see it anymore. Is Australia still on fire, or are all the fires out? Because that was the big deal until the virus came out, and now nobody talks about Australia burning. I just haven't seen anything else. Does anybody know, is Australia still on fire? And if so, type it in the chat. Um, Here's why it's happening now. So I guess it's happening now. Oh, Italy reports 7 deaths from people. So I guess Italians are not doing well from the coronavirus. Yeah, that just happened. Oh, no, it was this morning, I guess. Um, yeah, the world they're not declaring it a pandemic yet. Now it's not the time. Uh, and will it trigger a global recession? I don't know. I think we were kind of looking at a global recession anyway. I mean, we had basically soft numbers across the board, so kind of like, I don't know. Nothing in here that's like, eh, nothing super surprising. All right, so let's go over. Oops, let me set the actual go. Scan it real quick as the charts are coming online. So, at the majors, interesting. We have consolidation on 3 different pairs: pound dollar, dollar yen, which is very interesting to be in consolidation, dollar Swiss. All 3 of those in consolidation on the daily, and across the board, basically. Kind of, again, we're not in a trending market. Interesting enough, with as big those drops were, we're not necessarily inside of a trending market from some of the reactions we had last week. Euro Aussie, obviously, we have an anchor break to the top side. It's only up 30 pips, so it's not like it's a huge anchor break to the top side. But, there is something going on there. Again, on the 4-hour and the 1-hour, we do have the sideways up. And again, I think a lot of that is, finally Europe got some good news. They'd been, getting kind of, I guess, kind of little chips here, little chips there, little chips here of bad news, bad news, bad news, and now we've finally got some good stuff. So again, 30 pips, it's less than half the ATR, so I wouldn't put too much, kind of, for lack of a better word, I wouldn't put too much stock in that movement, right? Dollar CAD, you're kind of seeing an uptrend setup. And again, it's moving, but again, consolidation on the lower two, and then it shrinks. New Zealand, again, New Zealand is pretty much going to follow what the Aussie is doing. So we're sideways up, confirmed right now, but then we're getting mixed signals on the lower two time frame. So I would say that's probably in consolidation as well, and we'll check where that is supply and demand wise. And then Aussie dollar, obviously downtrend setup. Um, and again, basically all that means is we had a pullback today. And again, with everything going on and dollar weakness, it's not necessarily surprising that that was up, as well as, again, this follows gold. Gold was up, obviously. It was a very interesting picture, like literally going straight up, and then kind of coming around and turning around. So yeah, we'll see. Now, looking at the European basket, this is where it gets super boring. Check this out. I mean, we have just, no setup, nothing confirmed or set up here. Here, these two are consolidation. These two are nothing, just, downtrends. We have the anchor break here, but we know that's only 30 pips to the top side. So not really much of an anchor break. It's just we had so much consolidation in the euro that's what happened, right? And then, euro pound sideways up confirmed, and then kind of mixed signals. And again, that's up 31 too, so really not too much movement in there. The CAD basket is actually the CAD and the Aussie basket. Those were the two that were super weak last week. And actually, I guess the pound isn't bad either. But those two were the ones that were more or less the weak guys last week. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing a little bit of a bounce back, right? We're seeing downtrends and setups, basically meaning we have green bars, right? Right? We have, this one basically pulling back here. This one pulling back here, and this one pulling back here. So interesting, we're finally seeing some life over in the Canadian basket. CAD Swiss, CAD Yen, obviously those two are still consolidation, and we have an uptrend setup, meaning that we have a little bit of CAD strength pulling back on the dollar as well. And again, that one is up on the daily right now. Looking at the Aussie basket, again, basically two up, and what are we seeing here? We're seeing some strength, right? We're seeing some strength. Finally, now, we do know the Aussie pairs were coming off, and again, the Aussie is related to gold. It's basically the proxy to play gold. And with gold up big, obviously these things are moving. Okay, now a lot of these things were coming off high-level demand zones, which again is kind of a coincidence more than anything else, right? It's a high-quality demand zone, but again, the reason these are up is based off of oil. I'm sorry, which is based off of gold, which is based off of kind of, with the fear of, a pandemic situation going on. All right. Yeah, we'll see. Pound. Okay, pound is showing you there's a little bit of a pullback, right? Two consolidations on the biggie, right? And again, they're consolidations because we had so much movement last week. But if you guys see, it's like -9, right? -9 is not really that much, and then -94. You're like, wait, how the heck is -94 a consolidation? It's because we had huge days last week, right? So we're stuck inside a consolidation pattern. But you can see it more over here versus the U.S. I mean, -9 in 24 hours, that's really nothing, right? And again, it is Monday. Pound Aussie, pound New Zealand. Both in very similar situations, uptrend setups, pull back on the 4 hour, pull back on the 1 hour. So we will check both those out, see what's going on there. And then pound CAD, the exact opposite, downtrend setup. And again, we saw some CAD strength coming back into the market. Pretty much across the board, you're seeing it. And then pound Swiss, kind of the same thing. A little bit of weakness versus the Swiss, which again, pandemic, that's kind of where you see that stuff, right? And again, this is a little bit mixed, but pound Swiss is kind of a funky pair to play. So interesting board. The pairs last week that were starting to kind of flatline. Again, the commodity-based pairs, they all have strength going into them, predominantly because of oil and gold. Predominantly, basically, gold more than anything else. And then the more flatlining and a little bit of, I don't know, jockeying for position, but I wouldn't say anything too strong. So I'm not, um, eh, not worried. Not super worried. All right, so let's go over to charts. And we'll start over here. Oops, man, this thing is just not finding anything. Hold on. Desktop. There we go. It's like, oh, let me update, and then let me forget where all the patterns are, or where all the charts are. All right, so let's start off with Aussie dollar. Okay, Aussie dollar. All right, so as you guys can see over here, basically, let's bring up the daily. Okay, you can see we were way low on a curve, right? Way low on a curve. Okay, on the 4 hour, you can see what we kind of ran into last week. Hold on, let me drop down to 30-minute, and I will. Is it on facing level earlier, right? This 4 hour, you can see pop, came back down and retest and kind of took off, right? There's not really necessarily an. But you're able to see it on this one, right? Pop down, and then it came across. On the 1 hour, it gives you a little bit more. Let me reset. There we go. On the 1 hour, you can see we had a little bit more, right? So we had the gap all the way down, and we never were able to actually fill the gap on this one, right? We got close, right? We got pretty close, and then pulled back down again, kind of in the same area. So you had the ability to draw a, kind of a bit of a zone there and say, hey, listen, this was a failure to go higher situation, or failure to go lower situation, right? It pushed down, it spiked, came all the way up, pulled all the way back down again, did not go lower, and then kind of base sideways before it popped. So there's one setup there, as well as you could have used this area as well, because again, it came down, we had a base, and then it popped up, and then we had the retest here. So there was a smaller actual trade in this one to the top side. Looking at it down on the 30-minute, you guys can see, and actually look at that. I marked that one off, and look where it is. It's literally right inside the zone I just marked. Okay, again, that's just from being able to look at it on upper time frames and read price action. So we're actually getting somewhat close to where we had that entry back up at the gap area. We just didn't necessarily hit it. We came all the way up, and then it pulled down and ended up hitting both targets. So we were not able to actually get our gap fills on this one. We got front run on this one, and that's just going to happen. So looking at it now, is it still a viable area? Probably. I mean, it's one of those situations where we have kind of the aggressive gap, which we already know that the gap is typically, areas of supply and demand. And then we have kind of the area right above it. We had this nice pop up, and then it was starting to pull back away again. So there is two levels, a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more conservative. The aggressive one is 66.22 to 66.27. It's only about a 5-pip zone, so very, very small. And then the other zone would be up here over at 66.31 to 66.38. So you're talking about what, 7 pips? So not too much, not too bad, either one. And like I said, I see it still pushing down again as this one kind of basically rebounds off of what it had today. Hopefully we can get up high enough before we end up flipping and coming back to the downside. But I don't think we'll have continued movement in that one. Euro New Zealand, as you guys can see on this one, on the daily, we're kind of daily's a little bit funky, right? We keep getting these really, really big wicks. I mean, they're bearish candles, not only because they're red, but because they're closing more on the lower side. But they're giving these big wicks. So it's definitely been a choppy market back and forth. And you guys can see, even on this one, you can see a lot of wicks back and forth. And we've really been stuck between this area, which, again, we've been kind of front run back here last week, and this lower section. So we're sitting at the lower area now. Looking at it on the hourly, you can see, even here, there's really not many great areas, right? I mean, you'll have little pops, and then it comes back and retests, and a little pop, and this one came back and retested, but it's basically stuck inside this huge kind of racetrack over here, okay? Now, had you been looking to play this racetrack up, it got all the way to here. I mean, it got to where it was supposed to. It would have gotten close. I mean, we probably would have had a profit target there, but again, we would have taken ourselves out of it. But really, it's just been back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. So not really the best trading currency right now. Especially with everything we've had going on, right? And as you guys can see, this one popped up, kind of went to a small level of basing, and then kind of rolled over. But, I mean, is it really the best area? Not really. Not really. So, again, Aussie, New Zealand doesn't really have a whole lot for us to trade right now. Looking at Aussie Yen, so let's go back up to the daily. Just to reload the charts on this one. All right, so, okay, you guys can see. Actually, you know what, at this point, we can probably take this off just to clear it. Oop, not that one. It's easier to blow it up that way. All right, so this is kind of where we're looking, right? I mean, again, we've been kind of stuck between this area and this area up top, right? Here's the gap. You guys can see the gap area is right here. Okay, that area is still valid, but we're not anywhere close to it right now. But that area would be sitting right there. All right, dropping it down to a lower time frame, looking at it on the hourly. Okay, look at this. So this one is actually one of the gap targets, right? You guys can see right here that this one not only filled its gap position, okay, it actually came much, much lower, right? We ended up touching the bottom, came all the way down, and ended up kind of going off this base. Now, interesting enough, this is actually a hard one to predict. It actually did go a little bit lower. So, had you been trailing this one, you could have done it on a couple different of the time frames. You can see that's what it looks like right there. You guys can see the green and the red are both above. So again, this is a nice little entry. Now, this one, you may or may not have tried to get an aggressive entry off of this one. I typically like to use really, really clear areas, but you could have taken this long right here. Okay. Because we started in this was kind of this bottom of this pivot here. You could have taken this one all the way back up and then potentially turn around and flipped it. So you could have taken it from here, gone up and got 61 pips out of it, and then turn and flip it, and first target was 20, second target was 35. And you can see it ended up going all the way back down and bouncing off this area, grabbing some more orders, and then actually continue to push lower. So a lot of movement. This was actually a pretty good one to trade today. And again, the spread is small. We're down at 1, so not bad at all. And you guys can see here, there was from the gap. And look, you guys can see right off of this zone, we just triggered, and we're about an hour into it now. All right, this one had 73.49.4 to 73.59.6. Okay, not a bad little area there. Little small, little like what 10 pip range. And it's pulling a little back. Now you're up about 11 on it. We were up about 20 on it. Right, you were up what 21? Yeah, 21. And again, your first target is 30. Second one would be at 50. Now at 50, that 1 to 5. I'd be a little bit concerned about that one because that is on the other side of a smaller time frame demand zone. So again, be a bit cautious of that one. But again, you saw the setup in here. We had a downtrend setup. Okay, you guys look up top, right? I'll go straight up so it stays lit. Oop, there. You guys see up here on the top? Oh, can't do it that way. Downtrend setup, 30-minute 4 hours. So you guys are able to grab this off of a basing level that the indicator grabbed. That's what got you the entry for this one for a bit short. Okay. All right, so that's where we are now. We're actually in the middle of the trade, so not much we can do with that. Looking at Aussie CAD, let's go back up to the daily. All right, so we had this zone marked off saying, hey, listen, we got a week over week. If price comes up to here, we'd be willing to take it. Okay, we are getting green, right? We are in a downtrend setup, but we're not necessarily close to it yet. Okay, looking at the 4 hour, you can see it kind of bounced right off and it actually gapped right to this 1 to 5 target that we had painted from this area. And it's pushing up. Right, it's going. Right, we're still in the downtrend setup. We're not quite where it needs to be yet, but again, trade is still valid. It's continuing to push. If you guys look at over here on the hourly, you can see it's actually painting this this supply zone, but again, we're going to hold off towards this area. And again, on the lower time frame, it doesn't look as good because they look a lot longer to kind of flip over. And again, it's going to depend on the final time frame we take entry on. And the 30-minute kind of right here is what we're looking at. All right, you guys can see the gap. The fill came across, and it's just been kind of pushing. Now, we are in a little area here, which will be interesting. It's already turned it away, but we'll see what it can do here. This is not a bad one. And looking at this lower time frame, it's kind of like, well, there's your large time frame. Here's your small one. Small one's not bad, although I would have actually drawn it from back here in that area. Okay, this would have been the actual entry because you had this nice pop down, and there are nice clean candles. Okay, so Aussie CAD, it's got to get a bit more, so I'm not super worried about this one yet. It's got to get a bit higher. Aussie Swiss. You can see Aussie Swiss was bouncing off a demand zone on the daily, and again, green candle today. Not an explosive bit of movement, but you guys can see we gapped right into it, and that's what gave us the pop up, and we kind of came down and retested. So we do have somewhat of a green, red, green motion, but again, this is that that daily zone. This one is on the lower time frame. This is it's 24 on a 4 hour, but again, that's where we opened on a 1 hour. Okay, you guys can see there was the open. There was the open. There is it on a 30-minute. Okay, and it goes down to here. Okay, so again, definitely in the zone. Definitely would have got entry, and then you could have ridden this one up to. There you go. There's your 1 to 3 target. There's your 1 to 5. Now 1 to 5 again, because it's on the other side of the gap and the other side, not necessarily the best one. You would have taken your 1 to 3, or you would have ridden this one all the way back up to the start of the gap, which is right here. Okay. So in this case, your first profit target on this one would have been 32. And if you would have ran it back up at the gap, you're looking at about a 40 pip winner on that one. And it actually ended up moving about 43. And actually over here, it moved all the way up to 46. So again, you definitely would have filled your gap on this one for 40. And your risk level on this one, again, very, very small. Right, it started at 64.40 to 64.30. So 10 pip risk here. Again, 30 or 40, 1 to 4 is probably what would have been the best on that one. Just run it right back up to the gap. So gotta love those when they open up like that. All right. So another great little trade setup. Again, the indicator would have grabbed this one for you. You would have saw yourself popped right into the middle and an immediate push to the top side. So again, good one there. Where we are now, again, you're starting to see a bit more sideways movement. Looking at it on a 4 hour. Again, am I looking at short? Yes, it's a downtrend setup, but no, not really. I mean, it's already went in the zone, popped out, and then came back and basically grazed the top. So we definitely have some buyers sitting down in this area. We'll see what it's able to do tomorrow, if it's able to push down, or if, we'll see. If it continues to push down and we start grinding on the top of this level, then we'll have to start looking for some type of breaks. But for right now, it's probably one of those. Let's see if we can get a, let's see if we can get some trend out of this one. Like I said, this one kind of popped up here on the 1 hour and has started to push back as well. So a few different things. We'll see. We got kind of sellers, buyers, and we'll see who wins this. But right now we got a bunch of sideways movement with just a little bit of a pop. So not too much going on with that one. Looking at Aussie, Singapore. So here we go. So we mentioned coming all the way back to the downside. Obviously, again, we're right here. Again, a lot of these drawings are on different time frames. This was a daily draw. We'll mark this one off on daily and okay. Dropping down to the 4 hour. You guys can see this is what we're looking at. Again, we had these two pierces, front run here, push down. We're almost back to the start. We were basically here, right? Pulled back up and now we've gone lower, right? So dropping down to the hourly. Okay, here's the hourly. Okay, now here's the zone we talked about if we could get a break below. Okay, obviously from last week the analysis has changed. When we gap from here all the way past it, that obviously invalidates it, right? I mean, it was basically we were looking for a Harry Potter. We wanted to go below, get some space, come back up, and then run. And what did it do? It spiked down and came right back up. So it didn't give us that run last week that we're looking for. But we were gonna hold it, see if next time it would actually give us that same type of level. Well, it gapped right past it, so we never even got a chance to do that level. And all it did was run right back up again. It grabbed this demand or grabbed the supply zone on the 1 hour and pushed down, and now it's riding on that same zone. So this was actually a pretty interesting setup today. Like I said, came up, grabbed those orders, and then kind of went back to the downside. Although a lot of basing, right? I mean, a lot of basing, a lot of choppiness. So this one was really not the best one. And again, Singapore is obviously at risk from this whole thing as well. This one was kind of like a double whammy. It's like, you have Australia getting hit and Singapore getting hit. It's kind of like, well, they're both bad. So where do we go? And it's like, it's one of those hard ones where it's like when you have two negatives, they don't make a positive. They don't make a positive. But again, smaller time frame, there was definitely some things to trade. Again, this one would have been starting there in his own, and because we gap past it, there's not much we can do. And again, I still think we'll end up getting back down here on the daily, unless we get some, I don't know, unless we get some like crazy Australian news. God, could you imagine if like all of a sudden, like tomorrow we get news for Australia that like they've just found 200, like 2,000 new cases or confirmed cases or something like that, or like 200 confirmed cases or something, and 500, suspected cases in Australia. God, it would be horrible. This poor Australian dollar. That's where the decoupling of the Australian dollar and the gold would happen. You'd get a bit. My charts are the cleanest on Twitch. Why? Because I don't put a lot on there. This actually looks pretty busy. This is actually kind of busy for me, but I appreciate it, Jess. They're using drones to spray disinfectant on the streets. Are they really? Are you serious? Are they really doing that with the disinfectant with drones? Wow. Yeah, they're spraying some kind of disinfectant on money in China. Spraying it on money because they pass. Wash your hands. Just wash your hands. And honestly, that the scariest part about viruses is the fact that they can live like a really long time. They're not like bacteria that like go in a couple days. Um, you know, Viruses can live forever. They said eventually what will kill the human race is like some prehistoric virus when like the ice caps melt. Because we're not prepared for it. So those are the Aussie pairs, guys. Let's jump down into the Canadian pair. The Canadian pairs gave us a little bit of movement today. Let's go back up to here. Again, this is obviously a smaller time frame. Let's actually one we got front run up. You guys can see this is another one gaps, and it got front run, got super close. So look at this. Opened here, came all the way up, almost gave us the fill, and then boom, 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 and it's just falling downstairs, right? The old person just going boom, 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 and bouncing at the end. So funny. We had this line marked as a potential target if we were looking for things. It right here. Came all the way down. So it was good. So again, got front run on this. I'll delete it, right? I'm going to delete it so we can get the higher time frames without too much on there. This was another trade that we had from last week. We'll delete that. All right. This is what it looked like on a daily. Obviously, you guys can see we kind of capped over here. And again, we had pushed above. So I mentioned that last Thursday that, listen, we're pushing above. It looks like it's going to go back, but we're not really getting a clean entry on it, right? Because we went a bit higher than the previous zone. On the 4 hour, this is what we had, right? On the 4 hour, I can see this is where we were sitting last Thursday night. And I said, hey, Listen, we're sitting up here. If we can end up in the zone on the 4 hour, that set us up for a pretty interesting week next week. Okay. And then what did it do? It didn't even make it back up to that zone and went down. Here's the hourly. You can see that we had a little bit of a, again, a spike down, pull up, and then boom, this one just collapsed and just continued to move to the downside. And as I mentioned before, we didn't get our gap fill and just continued to push, 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 push. Here is a wick over wick. I don't know if you guys were able to see it or not. I can zoom in a little bit. The reason why I know it's there because it's not at the top of the bottom. It grabbed the equidistant wicks, right? Formed a wick over wick, came down, gave you another entry. So this was actually a trade you guys could have taken earlier today in this pair. The risk on it was rather small, about 6 pips, and again, it went much farther than that. The 1 to 5 got blown out. You can see the total movement from that area. Here was a green, red, green, so you could have taken yourself out here at about 30 pips, but it didn't really break any type of zones. And again, it continued to collapse about another 70. This is one of those plays right here. So green, red, or green. Oh, it reversed on us. Let's take ourselves out at 1 to 5. Yes, 1 to 5 is great. And then it does this, and you're like, oh, God, really? It just went 2 more times. Just doubled what my profit was. And it's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen. But again, if you would have grabbed it off this wick over wick, good for you. That was a nice little pullback. Didn't get it anywhere else in this trade setup. Okay. So where we are now, again, we're bouncing off a level where we had talked about before. Again, there was a bit of a wick over wick down here. We saw price came down and popped. And that's what we were watching out for, right? We're waiting for this to see the level of basing right here on the hourly. It went up, went sideways, and then boom. Okay, that's what it came down and touched. So we know there's some buyers down here. Question is, where is it going to go and find some orders at? It's pushed now above this kind of single standing wick right here. It may go all the way up to here. I don't know. This is kind of a tricky one because again, we did come off not a horrible zone, but again, we are pushing. We are in an uptrend again. We do have the green. We do have the red pullback. We do have the green pushing higher. This is a double wick, kind of a mirror, although there is a 3 with this one. So it's a zone. I think it'll slow down. Price is about 25 pips from right there right now. So it's about 4 hours if it goes straight up. But again, overnight, it's probably going to take double that. So probably more of a morning trade than anything else. I don't know. Wouldn't be surprised if this retraces a bit. If we don't really hear a lot of news tomorrow, and that seems to be the MO, we hear a lot of news one day, and then we don't hear things for 2 or 3 days. Or like last time, we heard bad news, and then the next day, like, well, maybe it was a one-time occurrence. We didn't see, it wasn't as bad as we originally reported. We didn't see more cases come the next day. It seems like it was isolated, right? And everything, like all the bad drama kind of went away. So that may be what we see, and we see a bit of a retracement back up again. So as much as I'd love to set something up on this one, I mean, really right now, this is the one chart. The 30-minute is really what I'm focused on the most, and kind of looking at this top side, which again is about 30 pips up or 30 pips down in either of those 2 directions, looking for buys and sells. And I wouldn't use this little one here. I would use this top one or the bottom one as a buying and a selling area on a smaller time frame. All right. So that would be CAD yen. Looking across at CAD Swiss. Now CAD Swiss, guys, you can see here. Okay, you guys can see we came up, we grabbed some orders, and again, this is on our levels. You can see it pushed back down again, big push, a little bit of a green, right? Over here, not as much fun, right? Looking at the 1 hour, this is where it gets kind of just boring. Getting to be a lot of wicks, Didn't even come back to a really great area, so it's one of those things where I was kind of like, yeah, not too much sitting there. Again, lot of supply formed on the top side of this one. I still think this one will continue to push down. Obviously today, it was a little bit of a fight back and forth, right? But I still think we'll come lower on this one. I just don't. We got to push lower into one of these 2 zones before I'm really looking to get into a buy on this one. I won't use a small time frame like this or a small zone like this. I mean, you could have taken it, sure. But in this case, I mean, it's just, you're trying to pick bottoms if you're playing this one. I'd much rather take 2 of these lower on the curve down here. Those start down at 73.44 and 73.36. All right. This is not my favorite pair, FY. All right. Look at the Swiss yen. Okay. So Swiss yen. Okay. You guys can see Swiss yen ended up taking that huge bounce off, came all the way back up to the top that we mentioned last week. We said the red was the aggressive, and then we had the zone right above it, which was the kind of a bit more conservative. The aggressive line is what held again, and you guys can see we kind of came up and ended up tagging that zone that was right here, right? That's what we were messing in last week. Lowering it onto the smaller time frames, again, you guys can see here was the actual gap play from Sunday night. It didn't open inside of his zone. This would have been a nice play back again, but it didn't make it all the way back. It did go back up and fill the gap and did not get stopped out. and then pushed down to what's 1 to 3, it's 1 to 5, came back down, pulled up, and continued to drop lower like everything else did. So this was a very, very interesting one. And as I said, it didn't really fall into an area where we would say, hey, that's a great place to go along with it. Would have been kind of an interesting grab to the top side. But again, nice little area. One of the things too, again, here's the gap start, but there is a level of basing sitting right here. Okay, so it's kind of interesting where it pulled back, and you can see that it marked it off here, the wick over wick. I would have actually drawn a little bit differently because the wick over wick is actually attached to the green. This is where I would have drawn mine. Okay, off of this area, I would have encompassed the top of these candles, and I would have made sure that we got the bottom of that green right there. Okay, and you can see price ended up coming back and touching. It drew it here, but no point in taking this full risk if you don't need to. In this case here, I'll delete that, and you guys can see where this pulls back up into. But I'd make sure we get the bottom of the green and put it right to there. No, not there. There. Okay, and again, you can see we got our entries. It was close. It wasn't by like many pips, but you were able to get it. And there was your 1 to 3. There was your 1 to 5, and that was probably not bad. Like this would have been a target that I would have made sure I got out by, and it went just slightly lower. So not horrible, but again, that would have been looking for a re-entry. That's where your re-entry would have come in at. The 30-minute time frame, going a little bit higher than what the drawn wick over wick was here. Again, I would have used the level of basing here and then the pop down. I like the way that this popped down. This one. Okay, so like I said, I don't use these zones as kind of blind. I'm just going to take it because it says it's a zone. I typically will use it, have my eye bring me to that area, and then see if I could refine it, make it just a little bit better. Like I said, every situation is different. I don't believe in trading robots. And that's not what this was designed to do. This was designed to meet a certain set of requirements, and if I need to slightly adjust and augment to make it better, then that's what I'm going to do. And in this case, my risk level, you guys can see, is very small here. You're talking about what, 10 pips versus an area here which would have been 19 pips. So half the risk. And again, not that this was a bad trade. I mean, had you gotten into this, here, you still hit your 1 to 3 down here. So I mean, you still would have done okay. You still would have, ended up making, your piece on it. But it's just, how much risk do you want to take in the account? I'd much rather take half the risk and twice the position size. The loss would be exactly the same, but I need to move less pips, right? I need to move less pips in that case to be able to get to my target. And again, so like say I had taken one standard, right? Right, on this one. Okay, instead of making, just an example, if this was any, obviously like the euro dollar pair where it's $10 a pip, right? This one would be different because of the yens here, but again, instead of making $10 per pip, right? And going from here down to where was it here, where it's 50, you're like, oh, okay, that's 500. Well, here I ended up going back down and making 50 as well, but now it's worth double the amount. So it's a $1,000 trade instead of a $500 trade. Yet the risk is exactly the same between the two. You guys see how I can extend that a little bit more? Just makes it a little bit better. You drew the wick over higher here, or you did here. I mean, you couldn't really go much higher than this one, but and not get filled. Or it may be delayed. I may have just saw your comment. You may have done the same exact thing I did. But yeah, so that was the entry. All right. All right, so there is the Swiss. Let's go over to the Euro. Euro Aussie. Oh, the other thing I will say, so where they had the Overwatch thing this weekend was over a place called the Anthem, and it's I can't say it's brand new, but it's basically like a newly refurbished area right down on the water called the Wharf, and there's like 30 restaurants right around this whole place and little ice rink and stuff, and this big like fire pit for s'mores. Very, very cool area. But anyway, the food in there was like, it's pretty bad when you go to a place like this and the beer is cheaper than the food is. Asher got a $5 bag of popcorn. It was literally the size of 2 coffee cups. And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, I could get a better deal at a movie theater. Yeah, it was crazy. But yet beer was like $7.50 or $8.50 for like bottles, cans, drafts, whatever you wanted. I was like, this is nuts. I'm like, huh. I'm like, it's pretty bad that I can, hot dogs, $10. Pretzels, and when I say $8 for a pretzel, I don't mean like, the like sports stadium pretzels. I mean like a 4x4 pretzel. And I was like, what? And actually the girl next to me, she spent the extra dollar to get the jalapeno cheese filled one, and she said it was empty. She goes like, it was hollow. It was like it was supposed to have cheese, but it didn't have any cheese. I was like, good thing I didn't pay the extra dollar. All right, on the daily, sorry, sidetracked again. On the daily, you can see again, big rally up off of that area. Okay, on the 4 hour, you guys can see we were sitting inside of this zone. So basically, this is where we started our day at, right? Not too much that we can do inside of a 4 hour supply zone. And again, I think that's why this one was very muted, right? Again, it was trying. It pushed here. It pushed again. It pushed again. Couldn't do too much, right? It just kept getting banged around, right? And again, you couldn't get anywhere because again, we're sitting this higher level of supply. Here's a 30-minute for those of you guys that follow the gap strategy. Again, we started all the way up here, and again, we were kind of in a zone on the higher, but it's like, all right, it came all the way down, ended up making it, ended up hitting, and we went all the way back up, and it ended up hitting, but it came all the way down a second time. So I mean, you had multiple entries into this one. It did eventually hit 1 to 5. Obviously, I only mark off the 1 to 3s, about 35 pips on that one. So yeah, so another one that ended up moving quite well. And again, you had 2 or 3 entries on that one. But the reason why this one didn't move continually higher, like you saw with all the other pairs, is again, obviously, because of this. Okay. Again, you can see it on here, right? It's smacking right into a zone, right? 4 hour base level. Now, would I have taken this whole thing? Probably not. I probably have used a smaller. That's why we ended up not getting the big movement like everything else did, where it came down and then just went higher. Okay. So again, Euro Aussies unfortunately gains to the top side. We're a little capped there. Now, EuroCAD, kind of the same thing. Look where we're sitting right here, right? So here's on the daily. Again, we hit this bottom, nice little level of demand. Push back up again. Very, very large spike, right? Very, very large spike. On the 4 hour, we're like, okay, let's see. It went just slightly higher, but what's it doing now? It's like, ooh, not as much movement. Looking at on the hourly, oh, that's what happened. And ended up hitting there, right? So again, large spike up on the hourly, ended up hitting, and then bam, that thing held. So kind of a similar situation to what you had with Euro Aussie. Its upward side gains were capped because of areas of supply. Supply doesn't care, where the virus is or what's going on. In this case, obviously, this is European strength based off of that manufacturing number, and we've seen it, continue through. Question is this going to be good enough to hold? I mean, the zone was pierced pretty deeply all the way to the end. It was pushed in this candle right here that just turned yellow when I hovered over it. See, on the 30 minutes, same thing. You guys can see we've pushed higher, then failure to go higher, and came up, and then obviously in the 30 minutes it just kind of flatlined here. But obviously some sellers up top. It made 2 attempts up, and it reached some, grabbed some orders, but really not a. I wouldn't say there's a great level here where I'd say, hey, listen, there's a lot of orders to grab. Not until we get down to this level here, which is about 50 pips away. The daily ATR is only about 65, so I think this one will be a little bit more tempered tomorrow. If anything, I would say, hey, listen, based off of this large spike up on the daily, and you guys can see the 4 hours pretty, some pretty explosive candles as well. We're basing right now, but we're sitting in a zone. It has the ability to go higher, and again, if we do break the top side, I'd be looking to go long all the way up. But at this point, I don't know. I almost want to say that it looks like it's ready to flip and more turn back to the downside. At least drawing it on the hour on this hourly chart, that's not a bad place for your 1 to 3, right? I mean, it's definitely before we have this. I mean, again, any profit targets need to be out before here at 43.75. I would not hold the 1 to 5 on this one. I think the 1 to 5 would be pretty. I think you'd be getting a little greedy on that one if you went that much lower. But I think this is a very valid rundown. Yeah, I mean, what are we talking here? We're in the zone right now, and it's about 11 pips. So again, it's in that same frame that we like. 10 to 15 pips is not a bad area, and it's in a zone and it is counter trend. But again, when you have huge days like this, I mean, look at this 4 hour candle. I mean, look at this. This thing has basically been straight up, right? And we are in a downtrend setup on a larger time frame. But look at this. That's one candle. That's one of the largest candles up on this bit here. So, yeah, I can see a retrace in EuroCAD. Euro Swiss. Euro Swiss is coming off that. Look at that. We are so close. So close. And we've been talking about this for so long. Look at this. Look how close we were. So close. Bouncing off that area and getting some some upward pressure. Look at it's right there. So close. So for me right now in the 4 hour, we're kind of wedged in between a selling area here that it's respected at once already and this buying area. I mean, it's quite a, you're talking about 70 pip range that it's in between. So I mean, there's definitely something sitting there. God, it's already starting to kind of get exhausted. Oh, look at that. I don't know. This one is not bad. taking a short in this one, again, you're on the higher end of the curve. It's about 6 pips, so it's a little bit smaller risk on the hourly. The spread on this one right now is 1 pip. The 1 to 3 looks good. I'd have to see, and again, if it can make it past the 1.5, doesn't look horrible. It's before this basic level here, so that's not bad. And the only reason I would say that this one is a viable short is because the last two had the same situation where, 3 pairs all sitting in supply, as we mentioned before, the week before. When most of your charts are sitting in supply or demand, that typically tells you where it's going to go. So again, kind of a similar situation. This one, unfortunately, though, is a bit far. It's about 16 pips, right? It's a couple hours away. It's a 4-hour candle at this point away from being able to hit that zone. The other ones are a lot closer. Okay, so that's about the only setup I could see in this one. Didn't price go into this zone? Charging you for ambience. Ambience is like relaxing. This was like super hardcore, super crazy stuff. Oh, and they had an aerial performance. It was 2 girls. Well, actually, they started in one ring, and then like the second time they came out, they were one in each ring, doing like that, like where they like suspended up in the air type dancing. All of the 25 to 35-year-old men in there, single with no girlfriends, they love that part. And as a dad, I was kind of like, well, that's quite appropriate for, kids that are 8. But I guess the main person that they're focusing on is the, mom and dad's basement. So that would be obvious. No, this area here, I'm not worried about it. It went high. It went high, but again, like I said, it's more based off of this 4-hour target here. And just because you went high doesn't mean much. Obviously something printed away. There's something sitting probably on the other side of it. And basically what I'm trying to do, Ernest, is this one is a little bit more of an aggressive entry. And the reason why, because it's a little bit farther from the zone. So if price is able to go up on the first two, like if it's able to go up here and go up here, it's kind of running into kind of a similar situation, right? Supply, supply, supply. Typically, all supply ends up kicking in around the same time when those buyers for the euro, the sellers for the euro start coming in. So it's kind of like sometimes I like a conservative entry, sometimes I like a little bit more of a run. In this case, it's kind of the more aggressive one, and you can see even on the 30-minute, right? It's the zone is actually sitting up even here, so you could technically lower your risk even more if you wanted, right? And again, it's it the indicator's marking it off because it's comparing this side to this side, and it's saying, hey, listen, this is a pretty explosive move off, and it's a drop base drop again out of that area. So yeah, it's been there a little bit, but there's something sitting right above this area because it got turned away here, got turned away here, got turned away here. So there's something sitting in this area. That's the only way it can be turned around this many times. We just can't see it. It's just hidden. Pound. So euro pound is up pips in 24 hours. All right, so you guys can see this one. Kind of a similar thing. On the daily, we're sitting inside of this area of demand. So we were calling this before last week, and hey, listen, this is another one of those pairs that is, didn't know what the German data was going to be, but we knew that we were sitting in demand. Again, most of the pairs are sitting in demand. And again, this one also had a similar pop, okay? Here is your 4-hour, and again, you can see that this one, we popped out of it, and then again, we opened low and then ended up pushing straight through to go to the high side. On the hourly, again, this is one of those ones you can see. And you can see it here on the hourly. We ended up hitting the gap, getting the 1 to 3, and then it just went crazy, and then up coming up and hitting the top side. So this is kind of an example of bouncing around. 30-minute is what we do our gaps on. You guys can see it came up, it grabbed, came down, ended up hitting. Actually ended up dropping through a 1 to 5 as well, pushing back down to this level before going just absolutely hog wild and coming back up again. So this was another one of those ones. This was a plus 10, plus 17, a small one. It was tiny risk. But again, this was very, very fast. Hour into it, boom, out, and then up. And you guys can see it respected the 1 hour up top. And again, this is a great example of focusing on the curve, right? When we're looking here and price is coming down, when price is all the way down here, if you're saying, okay, well, where do we have, where are the tops and bottoms? Well, here's definitely the bottoms, right? Here is more the top side of things, right? We weren't looking to grab levels in this area because that would be in the middle. We were focusing on the area from when price is here, we're looking from here to there, right? So this is obviously the lower side. So it's more of like long biased, right? In here, this is more kind of the middle where we're not focused on it. Well, this is very, very high into the curve, and what did it do? And ended up hitting and coming, starting to move back to the downside. All right. So again, it just gives a nice little example of, how things work basically, off the curve. All right. But right now, I'd say I'm probably short this pair as well. I don't see any reason to stay long again. You can see a failure to go higher in this one. The 1 hour, kind of the same situation. Again, we banked right off this zone already. In the 30-minute, kind of the same thing. There's a zone just a bit higher, but you can see it came up, based, pushed down, and then again got turned away. Didn't even make it that far. All right. So a couple different things. Again, just another one that I feel like we're in the same. Again, short term, short. We're not looking to go like major long term again because on the daily, we have all this up right here. Okay, we got all this stuff going on. All right, we know we definitely have buyers down there. All right, so that would be euro pound, euro yen. All right, so euro yen. This one, I don't know if you guys heard me in chat earlier. I was like, oh, come on, come on, come on, and that's why. It's doing all the zones, unfortunately, but you guys see this zone right here? Actually, this one here. I was like, come on, you can drop. Just go a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And I was looking for it to end up hit this target. So it was going good, going good, going good. This was close. It was a green, it was a red, but then the green went. I was like, okay, okay, okay. And I wanted to go a bit further. And actually, there was a zone here I was looking at too. And I was like, come on, just go a little bit more, a little bit more. And that's where we ended up getting hit. That's what I was looking for. Again, this was off a gap entry. We never got a green, red, green in the opposite direction. Like I said, the only time we got close was a little bit nervous was in here, and then came down and ended up touching in this one right here. Okay. Again, small risk on this one. This was basically off the 30-minute gap, right? About 7 pips risk. You add like one or two pips of this one. Again, this spread was a little bit more when it opened, and yeah, look at this, all the way back down 100 pips to the downside. And where's that 100 pips at? Just happen to be sitting right here at this level of basing. Okay, again, up, sideways, and up, and that's what we're cheering for. Now, this is one of those ones, somebody asked me earlier, could you have taken this one long off the open? Answer is probably. Again, this is not the cleanest of areas, and again, I'll use the back test piece here. You guys can see, it was marking a zone down here, right? All right, it was marking this zone, okay? Is this a zone here? Yes. Yes, it was a pop. It was sideways movement, and then it popped again. So yes, you could have drawn a zone inside of this range right here and said, hey, listen, we opened in that zone. Can I take this back? You could have, sure. It was a quite aggressive entry based off of where the open is. And again, it happened very, very fast. So you didn't have a lot of time to analyze this one, but you could have definitely done this, right? You could have taken this and said, okay, that's not a bad zone. Okay, I like that zone, right? You could have said, hey, basing, and again, on a higher time frame, like we could take it off here, and you could say, hey, listen, it's easier to see here, right? But there's no red candles. That's why some people confuse. So again, I'll use it here. Again, we'll take the entire thing. Whoops. There, right? Take it off the base and the pop, which is right there. Okay. So you can see there is your entry. Again, was this 1 to 3 fine? Sure. It's not the gap, and then your 1 to 5 is right here. So could you have held it all the way to your 1 to 5, retrace them all the way back again? Sure, absolutely. And then you could have taken it to the downside. Obviously, I was in the middle of a concert, so I did not take this one, but I got an email about this one saying, hey, could I have taken this one? Would that have been okay? And the answer is yes. Yeah, you could have taken that one. Just because, again, it had moved, it gapped so far, and it gapped right into an area. And again, 30-minute, you may have waited till, been better if it was a little bit lower, but you could have absolutely taken that one. Okay. Could you share your settings for the supply and demand tool? My zones are different. They should look like this. But yeah, I can. There are the current settings that I have right now. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I think actually these are the current standard. 12 and then 2.5, 2.5. 1. You may not have 1.5 on yours, but I think everything else should be okay. No, you should be good. I think everything else is fine. Fine. But yeah, if you want to take a screenshot of that, go ahead. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, it should be the same. So let's take that one. All right, so that was kind of a cool one. So where we are now, again, a little bit different. I'd say at this point, again, look at the 4 hour. There's a wick over wick just slightly above where we are, which doesn't surprise me. Again, being, I don't think we can see it on the hour. Like, top and bottom. So I'm going to see where this one is on the lower time. Don't know if I would take that one or not. I mean, it's been a bunch of time there, and it did give us a retest, so it's technically here. I'll delete these. I don't. I like to see it across and drawn through because I'm also looking behind. But see this. I have the overlay right now set on there, so it's putting my 4 hour zones are showing on all the different time frames. So it's showing this. So basically, what you're seeing is this kind of wick over wick. I'm trying to see if that was a viable entry to take this short because, like I said, the other pairs we've covered, if they come a bit higher, they're going to hit and kind of turn to the downside. So um, that's where that same level is right now. And again, it's sideways. It came up and retested, so it's technically a valid zone. I just don't like the way this base. It just I don't know. It's not horrible. I mean, it's in the middle of the range. That's kind of what you're looking at. The 1 to 3 is okay. The 1 to 5 is, I think, a bit far. I don't think. I don't know how I feel on this one, and here's why. This one's been way. Love it, love it, love those single bases. This is again, that's coming from a. I like it for the fact if it goes a little higher, it's going to be inside of a middle of the air. Not sure if I take that one. I'll have to see how I feel about that one later. Also, New Zealand, you guys can see on this one. We're sitting inside a daily supply, right? So again, daily supply on this one. On the 4 hour, same thing. We've been flirting with it. This one actually popped right into it. It opened here and then ended up driving higher and then pulled back again. Again, obviously wouldn't. It's funny. This one actually marked off the gap on there. But you guys can see it basically opened, one candle was up, back down again, and then finally came back all the way down to the gap. Top of it. Yeah, not much on this one. Again, we're kind of wedged in between the gap as well as the top section. So nothing really tradable on this one. If anything, I'm probably a bit more bullish. Euro, let's see. All right, so this one we had that one setting in. Let's see here. Oh, guy. All right, so this was a setting that we had from last week. There you go. All right, so remember last week I was like, okay, listen, if it's going to be very, very interesting because if we close up in this area, I really like this one for a short. Well, check out where it opened. Had you gone short when we got into the zone and held over the weekend, you were all the way down here. Pretty crazy. And it came all the way back up and ended up pushing all the way down almost to the profit target, which I mentioned this is probably a little bit low that I liked here a little bit better, right? Remember this, guys? This conversation, I was like, I like here better, right? I like where the body is behind here, not necessarily down here, but I like this better, right? Well, it went just past that one, ended up coming back all the way up to the same zone. So pretty interesting. That one actually held from over last week. Had you held it over the weekend, which again I don't, but that was what we talked about for last week. So we do know that this one was very, very close, and again, they ended up kind of pushing off of this area. We are in a downtrend setup on the daily and weekly. And again, on the 4 hour, you can see we had this lower area of this base, came back up, retested, and went higher at the end. And then what happened? We opened here and then pushed up. So kind of wedged in, right? looking at this also, we are in an area here. We had this drop sideways and drop, so we are kind of wedged. And we're only talking about it's actually 70 pips. It's not horrible, right? But this is kind of what we're looking at, right? This is where the gap was. It got front run to the downside. Ended up you could have run up. Sure, you could have tried to run up to the gap. You would have had a little tiny bit of heat in this one, but we really haven't left the area. This is where we were Friday, and that's kind of where we are right now. Like here was the close Friday, and here's where price is now. It's 15 pips different from Friday. Okay, a lot of movement back and forth, and again, it went right to where the gap opened, and again, that is having to do with this area here. Um, right now, it's kind of like, I still feel like this one's gonna want to go a bit higher. And grab it there. I don't mind the small risk, but I just don't. There's your aller. I mean, you're sitting inside of a supply zone already. Um, I want to get short this pair. I really, really do, but I'm just not. I don't think 4 pips is enough on this one to hold it to the top side. Again, hourly, we're already kind of sitting in something, and there's nothing really clean until here. Um, that zone's about 18 pips away. I actually like this area better than this area. I mean, if anything, I'd be looking at something along those lines. I like that better than I like this one where we're at right now. I'm just not really a huge fan of this area here. It's just too small. I mean, we're already technically in it. It's just too small. I think I would have to take the top one. Okay, I think the top one is a little bit better on that one. That top one, for those of you that can't see it, is 108.82 to 108.88. I think that's a little bit better of a zone. Well, I can tell you why, because you have a different broker. That's why. Yeah, if you're using a different broker, the prices are going to be different. Again, one of the things about currencies, and again, I don't think you have the class, so you may or may not know this. But again, currencies is there is no centralized market, so the prices are going to be different at every brokerage firm, right? They're close, but they're not going to be the same. Okay, there's not one location that they're being traded. There's not like a central, price maker. They're all going to be a little tiny bit different. But that's typically why I draw it, and I'll give you guys kind of the areas, and that's why I don't focus on the actual entry as much. That's also why I'm not as big on like signals because one person will be like, "Yeah, well, I got entered," and another person can say, "Well, I didn't get entered." Well, yeah, it's because you're different brokerage firms. It makes it a little bit more difficult to do. Okay. All right, so that's that one. Euro Singapore. Yeah, we got close. We got front run on the short to the downside on this one. Too much consolidation. Let's jump over the pound. So, looking at this on the daily, you can see, again, we're still kind of in that sideways kind of format. We got 2 days up, a day down, 2 days up. Again, we had that one explosion over here, but for the most part, we've been kind of wedged in this channel over here, right? Looking at it on the 4 hour, you can see again, and I'll stretch it out, make it look really, really good. You can see we did have a long signal earlier today. It came down again, not a bad basing level. I would have probably drawn it off of here, not necessarily this area, but back here. It wouldn't have gotten you an entry though. You would have missed the entry had you drawn it off this one. It actually needed this full little bit of it, but it did have a really nice retrace back to the downside. On an hourly, this is the situation of what we had, right? When we set this one back up over here, what we were looking for was a break to the top side. Okay, we were looking for a break, and we ended up getting that break up. It came back down, kind of pushed over, and then it dropped actually through. So this would have been a loss that we had off of last week. It was small. You're talking about, I think, like 13 pips. So it ended up going up. It ended up hitting that top area. So again, this is the target. So it ended up going there, right? It just this little spike that back down got it before it ended up going back up top. So that brought us into where we were today. Okay, and again, we'll drop it back down to the 30-minute. You guys can see this one here. Okay, here is your level of basing. Now again, this one is rather small, and you would have had to. And this is one of the ones that, again, I wanted to make sure we explain this one. Okay, typically what we focus on is just the gap candle. But when the gap candle is actually part of kind of a base like this, you really need to take the entire piece of it. I'd love to say, oh no, we just take it. It's one of those things. It's only 12 pips risk when you take the entire level of basing. That was a smarter play in this one, and that's how you would have had to take it. It did come up. Now, again, this one you could not have taken the run up. It didn't really land inside of his zone. It did hit. It ended up coming down here, hit your 1 to 3, came back up again, did not hit your entry, and then just obviously the floor collapsed on this one. As you guys can see, I mean, this one, this is here would have been your first target. Again, not a bad little target. Love it because it's right below. It hit that one, pulled back, and then there is target number 2. Okay, so couple different things, couple places you could have taken trades on this one. But again, this was the gap hold on this one. Nice little trade setup. In total on this one, like I said, 12 pips risk. Can't really beat a pound yen trade with 12 pips risk. Taking it for as much. And again, really, if you're talking about, I guess this had hit target and there was a green, red, green, I guess here. But if you were holding for a lower target, which I definitely would have, again, you really didn't get an exit until like over in here, right? Until this area. So, this would have been target 1, 83 pips. Target number 2 would have been 156. Any farther than that, I think you would have been pushing it. Had you held it to the bottom, it was about 192 pips. But if you're risking 12 pips to make 192, your kind of risk to reward ratio is like off the charts. So a bit more than is normal. But again, your 1 to 3, your 1 to 5 were easy. The 1 to 5, I would have held it down to here anyway. It would have been more in that 1 to 6 category, down at 83, with profit target number 2 being down here at 1. Well, you guys can see it right there. Okay. Now, where we are now, let's see. Let's take this off. Let's get this off. All right. So daily, I don't really necessarily love it one way or the other. It says it's an uptrend setup on the daily and weekly. Maybe. You can see we came off here on the 4-hour. Not bad. We're actually at a level of basing right now. I'd probably use this one for my analysis right now. What I would say is if we can get up top, I'd be looking to sell. If we can get back down again, because again, nice reaction. It was a very, very fast entry in, stopped on a dime and ended up popping to the top side. I'd probably use that for my long and short signals. So you'd be looking at, kind of there or here, top or bottom. Okay. I know it's a little confusing with 2 of them on there, but something along those lines. And your risk on that is, again, 4-hour zone, so about 27. We could probably make it a little bit smaller. 27 and 30, respectively, top versus bottom. And again, we're right in the middle. So wait till they get to either side and then drop it to a lower time frame and see if you can get a little bit better of an entry is what I would recommend on that. Pound Aussie. Pound Aussie is pulling back a bit, but let's see. Yeah, we're not. We really haven't moved. Here's Friday. Here's where we are now. So again, this one is really just no movement whatsoever. Yeah, you can see it on this one. I'll actually make it really nice. Look, there's the gap. You can see there's really just nothing. And just kind of rode along the side. So nothing on pound Aussie. Let's go to pound dollar. Pound dollars move 0 in 24 hours. Just FYI. Just look at it. See how it keeps turning on zones and it's just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Look at this. Low, 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 high. I'm sorry, the lows. Higher, higher, higher. We just have consolidation in this pair. Every time it turns, it's creating a new zone. Yeah, there's no, unfortunately, this one is not trending whatsoever. Even here, we're in the same exact spot. So nothing for pound dollar going into tomorrow. Pound CAD. I think that that's a good zone because it's too big of an area. Yeah, 30-minute it actually has a sit inside of a supply zone right now in the 30-minute. Really not here. There's not enough here. This is just too much. Here's where we ended Friday. We kind of went above, flat, one pop down, and then we're back in the same area. So no trend on that either. A lot of the pound one, nothing really like it down. I see the yen in some high. And on the daily, you can see we're kind of wedged in between the two. We got 70 pips to the downside. So we have one ATR till we get into this lower section. While on the 4 hour, it consolidated in on us too. All right, here is your 1 hour. Let's hour. Like I said, what I would do is we're kind of smack in the middle of the 50% mark. I'd wait till we go up or down before I'd look for a long or short because none of the pound pairs are actually trending, and this is really not trending as well. It's just going sideways. There's just not enough meat in this one. Again, if we can get to one of these two, then there's a bit more of a setup, but it's going to move, like I said, 30 or 40 in either direction. Yeah, it's going to move 30 and 40. It's going to move about half its daily ATR, so we'll see. I actually would prefer this one goes lower. If we can get into this lower zone here, I would actually like that better. Either of these two zones I think would be much better for a long if we can get down there. So if we get a little bit of Swiss strength, that'd be good. Besides that, wouldn't set up any trades for that. Not worth it. Pound New Zealand, you guys can see Pound New Zealand was very, very close on the daily to that supply zone. We got front run by a little bit. I'm going to see what it's going to do here. If it does kind of rebound off of what we saw today, right? And again, I wouldn't really say today was a day of pound weakness. But if we do get a bit of a rebound, we're just too close to this daily zone to mess with this one. As you can see here on the 4 hour, it's been so long we can't even see it. But look at this. It made one attempt and then it's close. It's reaching. So I'm wondering if it just pulled back to grab some orders. I'd be looking much more willing to take some type of a short. What I'd like to do on this one is I'd like to see this one push back up and get in this zone. And then I'd like to be able to drop this down to like a 30-minute down here and see somewhat like of a failure to go higher. Where I see something like this and then it pulls back into here and pulls up and fails, that would be my entry. But I'd be able to base my risk off of this lower time frame. I just don't. It's just not there yet. Like I said, I want to see it. I want to see it get a bit higher. See here, we have a zone. Buyers, buyers, buyers to the downside. Yeah, I want this to get higher. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. It's pound pairs. Let's go down to New Zealand. Right. So you can see this one opened up inside of that zone, right? Ended up bouncing right off of it for the daily. And we mentioned that last week if that was the scenario. You guys can see here that we had pushed up out of this zone. We, again, opened in the zone and went much, much higher. Okay. Oops. You guys can see there was your 1 to 3 and your 1 to 5 got hit a bit ago. But again, there was your actual trade setup. Here we go. And again, this one opened in the 4 hour zone. Didn't quite make it. So here on the 1 hour, you can see we didn't quite make it. It got close, right? Got close. And this is where there's hard things because, when you're looking at your 4 hour there, you can see the dotted lines where there's the 4 hour. It's like, yeah, we open up in the 4 hour zone, but we didn't make it on the hourly. So we take it? Did we not take it? And again, it depends on what time frame you're going to start it off of. Here is your 30-minute, and it's kind of the same thing. You can say, oh, we didn't make it, right? We didn't make it, right? Can we take it? Can we not take it? Well, it depends what your analysis looks like, right? I mean, you could say, well, listen, I know we're in a 4 hour zone, so, I'm willing to take it on this one. But then you need to make sure you set up the appropriate risk, right? Again, this zone was here from last week, right? I can take the daily off. That zone was there from last week. So, yeah, could you have taken that? Sure. But you just have to make sure that you have targets in good places. Now, it did require it to go all the way up to the gap, which is, it's fine. Again, on the 4 hour here, you're talking about risking 12. Is 12 pip risk on a 4 hour chart fine? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. I mean, your spread's going to be a little bit more. The spread right now it's showing me is 2 because, again, it is New Zealand CAD. But, again, valid entry, open up in a zone. And, again, the 4 hour zone is what we typically are looking for on our 30-minute or hours. And it ended up moving, again, 40 here and then 70 to the top side. Both of those are in fine places. Right? This is before this kind of nice little base here and push. So again, we know that this area is probably clean. And then the 1 to 5 is also in a nice little place. So again, could have taken it. Is there any trade in this one? No, there's not. Not right now. Like I said, on the lower time frames, you guys can see it is pushing up. And it's hitting these small zones now. These are more target zones than entry zones. None of these really qualify for me right now as far as being great entries, none on this pair. No. I'll see what it does. I think this one will probably turn and flip and come back down again. It's too big of a spike off that zone. But again, entry from the weekend. Entry from the weekend. And again, you guys can see we actually marked this zone off way back. I didn't really do too much. You guys can see it opened here and just went higher. It didn't even really didn't really hit much. Not much to do on that one. And again, from open back, you're talking, it would have been not horrible, but just not enough movement, and it's not really in the zone. Nothing super clean. Bit lower, and then I'd be willing to get in. I think this is just a pullback. I think it will turn and kind of flip back to the downside. I like to see this go a bit farther down before we go long. Let's see. Look at this one. Right. Look at daily. Back. It's 120 pip zone, so it's not back and forth. You guys can see here's the 4 hour. It came back to the downside of that channel again. Here, and then it's popped again. Yeah, we talked about this last week. We ended last week sitting inside of that 4 hour zone. We said that, hey, listen, if we can hold here or open in here, we'll definitely be going short. It didn't. It opened all the way down here, so almost all the way down to profit target. Pulled back a little bit and then continued to the downside. If you're willing, if you're looking to really get in this position, again, wait till it comes a bit lower. You guys can see on the 4 hour, this zone down here, I may want to give yourself a little bit more of a buffer than that. It's only a 9 pip zone, so it's not like it's a huge zone. But yeah, it's respecting kind of this top 4 hour and this bottom area here. I'd probably, what I would do is I would draw it here. There. Okay. Now, it has hit that bottom zone a lot, but it's also putting in higher lows. This was the lowest, then here, then here, then here. So somebody likes that area, but I do think of it. I think number 5 coming to that range. But it's not. I don't like a short for this one because we have a zone sitting right below it, a level of basing before a pop right below it. So there. See, then you're getting into kind of that stuff. Okay. Don't really love that one. Down here, we're sitting in a zone. Okay, so on the daily, we're on a demand zone for New Zealand Swiss. Not too much we can do on this one, right? Riding it, we went a little bit higher and then gap right to the same spot. So it's going to hit something to make another attempt to the downside. So we'll see. Those lines. Again, I'm using this level here that this was a test, and then this kind of horrible. Again, this did rally high, but it had a very big push out of it. So there's definitely some sellers that stepped in. That's not bad. I may have to come back and revisit this one. See what it looks like. See if we base before it. This one probably has about 8-9 hours before it gets there. So that could be one to put an alert on. Let's see, dollar pairs. All right, dollar yen. All right, so here's the daily. Okay, here's the daily. Talked about this last week. We went all the way into it, and you guys can see it almost retraced all the way back down to the downside. You guys know what happened in the U.S. markets today. You know why it happened in the U.S. markets today. Not too much we can do on this one. Let's get down here on the lower time frames. There was our pop. level basing. I think you see. Can you see this for a trade? Down here, right into his zone. It went all the way back up, tagged a 1 to 3, but then it continued to push lower. So this is one of those ones we'd been looking for something to, we've basically been looking for this one to go short. We talked about it last week, how it looked like it was starting to cap up here. We were sitting in area supplies. We're like, okay, I got it. Let's see if we can get an entry. And again, this was a kind of a base. This green candle right here was actually what tagged it and went lower. Again, we know that one was obviously successful to the downside, but again, if you didn't want to hold over the weekends, then we got to jump over here. Well, here was our gap. Okay, we were looking for this one. But where did it open? It opened right down here in this level of basing, this drop sideways, and then that was kind of an explosion point from this prior level, right? Well, mark the bottom here, the top here of where the explosion started. You guys can see the green does come below it, comes all the way back up, and the red goes right to there. Okay, so it definitely would have gotten closed on the opposite side. Again, depending on your broker, but I mean, this one is 2 pips above. Actually, I guess, yeah, 2.2 pips above. So not a bad area. Again, that would have been off the open yesterday if you guys were able to grab that one. Now, looking at this one, it's kind of like, I mean, it's pulled back, right? You got these big impulse correction, and now it's trying to impulse again. Again, this is healthy right now. We'll see where this red candle can go if we continue to push lower. If it does break below this 110.65-ish range, I do actually think this one will try to attempt to push a bit lower. I do think it will try to come back down and at least get back down to this range. I think that's probably a safe, I don't know. That's probably a better area to start looking for some type of a long. I don't know. Consumer confidence will definitely help tomorrow. I would like us to be, ideally, I'd like us to be in this bottom zone before consumer confidence at 10. Again, that may give us, I don't know. Again, 10, 10:30 are the two most common, times for reversals. If we can push down overnight, right, get this continue push back, maybe base a bit here and then come lower, be right down here, be sitting here. Whoops, circles are weird in this. If we can put ourselves there for news, I definitely like this one for an index position. Again, consumer confidence is a big thing. If consumer confidence is waning, obviously that's a bad thing. If it is good, obviously, again, that's always good for the economy. That would give us kind of a rebound for what we had today. And again, like that as far as that positioning. This is a pretty clean zone. Again, down, sideways, nice pop up, 5 candles out of that area. So again, rather clean, very easy for the indicator to grab. But that's kind of what I'm looking for the yen. Looking for the Swiss. Hmm. We're up in that daily zone. We mark this one off. Talking about this top zone. So let me get this off now just to clean it up. That's you can see this one was all over the place. Here was your gap. Here came all the way down, came up, tagged the gap, and then boom, 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 1 to 3, 1 to 5. Okay, and then what did it do? It tanked all the way back down again, as we know. Ended up bouncing right off this lower level. So again, another one of the gap setups that even though it kind of was a little bit strange, ended up working out just fine. Again, it would have taken, one of those things. Big movement to the downside, but it didn't really go into an area. Had we started up in here, yes, you would have taken it short. But to watch this, it's kind of like, did we get front run? And then boom, it tagged it and then continued to push all the way through. So it needed to go a little bit lower. But again, in this case, another one of the gaps that worked just perfectly fine. Risk was rather small in this one. So we'll remove the gap now since you guys can see it. Again, this one is more consolidating than anything else. You can see on the 1 hour, again, we came down, we just grazed the top of this, but we formed 2 nice levels on the top. So we're kind of stuck right now. Not that it's far, right? I mean, we're talking about, 14 pips down and 18 pips up. So it's kind of smack in the middle, right? Smack in the middle. But you can't really do much until we get to either of those two sides. So I wouldn't really worry about too much at this point with dollar Swiss. Until we get either of those two. Dollar CAD. Dollar CAD's got to get a bit higher. We're looking for dollar CAD to come up to 133. What's that? 25. And we're super close. Again, we made a big push, a little bit of a pullback. Let this come higher, and then we can start looking for some shorts. Your shorts will come in, around that area. Okay, I do like the 1 to 3, and actually the 1 to 5. I'm not really super against it. It's right at the very, very bottom. If it tests that same bottom where it ran into buyers last time, that will take you out at 1 to 5. Okay, so still in a dollar CAD, but I'm waiting for it to go just a bit higher. And look at this one. This is crazy. Singapore. I mean, there's where we close again. How's that for a closing candle? Literally just boom, and it stopped, right? All it did was kind of retrace back down again, but there's no levels in this one, so dollar Singapore is not really a trade setup that's viable right now. Looking at I have it as an oil setting, but it's all the pairs. But here's what oil has going on for it. So there's the 1 hour. Okay, let's go back out to this one. So I'm still waiting. I still have a position up top here, looking for an entry if we can get that high. Obviously, it has pulled way back down again. We're back down to basically at 52, right? That same area. Looking at this one on the 4 hour, you can see there was the zone that we talked about. Here's where we ended Friday, and it just did nothing but fall away from it today. And again, this is a demand issue. There's nearly nothing we can do about this one. Here is where we started. We came up, we pulled back, dropped, and again, didn't really get a clean entry in either direction. Did get a level of demand, though, which is actually not a bad area. I do like that area. Looking at it here, let me reload. There we go. Not a bad level. This is that level I just talked about. So kind of like the way that it came out of drop, and then I like the reaction out of it. This level here, I don't necessarily love that level. It kind of came up. It was like doot, and then it started to move. Okay. Probably want to see what it looks like tomorrow morning. I don't really necessarily love any of them right now on this one besides that 4 hour, but I think there'll be definitely an oil play tomorrow again. As we hear more people talk about, continued reductions in demand, I think this will probably turn and flip. Remember that we have oil news this week on it's Wednesday this week, so again tomorrow night we'll get that preliminary report. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think oil is going to be a fun one to trade this week, particularly if we continue push to the downside. But like I said, I don't know who it is, but those people every time it gets close to 50, buyers start stepping in. They're like, no, can't go below 50. It'll happen. It'll happen. Eventually, those guys will run out of money. So we're going to continue to push on this guy. Where is it? Right. So here's gold. Right? This is the hourly. So I was talking about this today. I was like, man, look at this thing. This is like a rocket straight up. And I was like, do I make the comment about how things that go up come back down? I was like, no. I'll wait for it to happen. And you can see this was the response to it. There was its movement up, right? And it was like ding, 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 ding. And then boom. And it made one more attempt and it failed to go higher. Boom. So had you had the indicator, this is a pretty nice one, right? There was your trade setup. Not only did you blow through your 1 to 3, but you blew through your 1 to 5 and it retraced the gap again. So this is a perfect setup for those of you guys that like these kinds of things. Again, makes a new high, makes a base, it drops. I mean, again, it came all the way down here. It did drop down to 1672. It was down, basically 10, right? It was at the bottom of that zone is at 1682, right? Dropped all the way down to here, which is over 1 to 1. Then it came back up. It touched here. And then boom, 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 all the way to the downside. So, whew, nice little trade with gold, right? Again, failure to go higher. Indicator picked it off. Whoops, not that one. Again, this was at 9 o'clock this morning. So this is one of those ones that you guys could have rode all day long. Okay, could have rode that all day long to the downside. Okay, where we are now with it, again, I would keep that top area still marked off. That's not bad. Problem with this one is there's really not really much good demand to where I'd be like, hey, I'd take that long. I'd take that long. The only reason you would mark this one is because, again, we are at the top. It did drop. It did move at least 1.5 times its size away. When it formed, then it came back and acted as a retest. So it's a classic failure to go higher situation. And again, continue to push to the downside. But and interesting enough, there was kind of a Harry Potter trade set up right here. Okay. Price came all the way down to here, came back up, touched, and then continued to push to the downside. So bit of a Harry Potter in there also, but again, that was pretty deep into its move. I mean, at this point, looking at it, I would have to say that I'm probably more bearish with it. I may be willing to take a short in this position right here. Again, not quite all the way to the top, but again, the way that it reacted off this candle, I like. The fact that it dropped, it based, and then just blew through this zone, pretty nice. Pretty nice. So that could be a potential short tomorrow, depending on the time that it reaches it, and that would be 60. What is it? 1672 to 1676. In that range, and again, yours will adjust based off the platform you're in. And again, that's if it goes that direction. I mean, to me right now, it looks like it's looking for some orders once it go lower. I don't see anything too crazy in this one. All right, Dow. The rest of these are just going to be insane. We'll go through these pretty quick because we are definitely 10:40 is much later than we normally go. You guys can see this thing pulled back. So on the daily, we were talking about this last Thursday. Same thing, same setup. Failure to go higher, right? Came down base, went lower, came back up, retested, and just collapsed. You can see this where we ended Friday. Big day down today, over 1,000. You guys can see on the 4-hour, what do we run into? Look at that, areas of demand. Okay. Now, this one may be a little while. Like I said, I think this one is probably not going to hit. I don't think we're going to do another 1,000 points tomorrow. Don't think that's going to happen. And the question is whether or not this 4-hour zone is going to hold. Not the best zone. It was tested one time. Right, it did have a little bit of retest here, but you can see we have a level here, we have a level here, we have a level here. So we definitely have some buyers stepping in and not too much sitting above us. We do have this one little base drop though. We do need to mark off this zone and just make sure you guys keep an eye on it. If anything, what I'd like to see overnight is if we can get this thing to rally up overnight and then hit this area in the middle of the night, that wouldn't actually be a bad area for us to kind of bounce off of and actually turn and flip back to the downside and see if we can settle over here tomorrow. That's kind of what I'm looking for right now. But for an overnight for this one, I just think, I think it's had enough movement. It needs a bit of a breather, and it's going to be a little bit of a slow retrace. We'll see. If that consumer confidence number is bad tomorrow, though, this one will continue to push to the downside. Then the question is, has it retraced up enough? How many levels can it blow through to the downside before it runs into something? So that's the only thing I'm worried about here. Looking at the S&P did the same thing. It looks almost identical. There's your daily. Okay, this one did not give us the same kind of fair to go higher top to it. Here's your 4-hour, right? And it's not even, there's not even any. So this one is a little bit spikier, all right? You guys can see here, it's been a while. Nothing clean, nothing super clean until we get all the way into this area. Like I said, this one hasn't really put in great levels. Not a big fan of the way this one is painting. Normally the S&P is better. NASDAQ on the 4-hour, you guys can see this one again drove all the way down. This one you guys did have some entries at the end of last week, right here. You guys remember this one? Boom, boom, here, and now, whoops, there. That's what you're kind of looking at, right? So this one got close, got front run. This one is a level on top of a level. Not horrible, not horrible. Has the same base drop here though as well. Let me see. You guys see same base drop as we saw before. Not bad. I like the way that it has a formation. I like the fact that it has a wick on there. I mean, any other time I'd be like, yep, I'm all over that one. I like that zone right there, right? That is not bad, right? And then again, you also need to mark off this area. Okay. So either of those two areas I'm willing to take shorts off of. It's going to depend on what time it gets up there. Again, if it's sitting in either of these two areas before news, that could be enough time for you to take a little bit farther out of the money binary, play it for the day, and see if you can get that push to the downside. I don't know if I'd be jumping on shorts where it is now. I think it needs to pull back a little bit, but if you do get the pullback, I think that will turn into a pretty nice short as well. All right. Don't know that this is going to be the holding spot though. It's okay for a zone, but it's spent a lot of time here. Spent a lot of time there. All right. So again, currencies are better than some of the other ones. Like I said, it's not every day you have a 1,000 pip or a $1,000 move in the Dow. So yeah. All right, guys. So that was the last of the charts. Again, we went late tonight. Sorry about that. I know we started a little bit late. We have 10 tickets in. I'll give you guys 1 minute to get it in. Like I said, we had a bunch to talk about tonight, so a little bit longer of a stream, an hour and 40 minutes. But that's what happens when you have a lot of pairs. All right, so give you guys like another 30 seconds. I'll close it down at 140. Give you guys your pip chips for the night. Let's see who do we got in here. Oh, we have Vanessa. Vanessa is back. We have James. I'm missing Josh. No Josh tonight. It's like somebody's not getting gas money tomorrow. Has bought his second one. 7, 6, 5, 4. Man, I feel bad for Josh. Guess Josh's daughter doesn't need gas this week. And there we go. All right, winner of the drawing is. Ooh, that's 2 in a week. Wait, I think that's like her third, not in a row, but I think that's her third in the month of February. I think she got. Didn't you get one last week and then like the 1 week before? Did you go like back to back? I think you've gotten 3 in the month of February. Fourth. There you go, fourth. Wow. Wow. There is a new king in the castle. Man, I was gonna say, Ernest, you better set up some personal mentoring with her because she's oops, not that one. Nope, nope, not that one. Where is it? Wait, where's the thing? Oh, they reset everything. Hold on, I'll have to go back to it. Yeah, this was updating earlier. They're like, oh, your statistics are wrong. I'll make sure that I add your stuff tomorrow. I have to add your stuff in here, so I will add your points tomorrow. Yeah, there was an issue with it. It wasn't able to pull the data, so I will add yours tomorrow. But that's awesome, man. Fourth one, killing it. Okay, she's disqualified until June. Yeah, she's kill. I think that's like honestly, I was like, man, yeah. So whatever she's doing, it's working. Whatever she's doing, it's working. All right, guys, I am out of here. I'm gonna go crash. I am still dead tired. Like I said, I like my computer games, but I can only handle so much and chasing 2 kids around, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I will see you guys in the morning. I'll be around trading. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I will catch you tomorrow.